Hi everyone, welcome back to the Mandarin
Cool.
Movement podcast. Got a very special guest with us today, Andrew. Say hi, Andrew. Introduce yourself a little bit. Actually, Andrew, sorry, before I say that, I'm terrible at these introductions, these starts. I'm just the worst at it. Andrew's actually done an interview with us previously with Phil, not even a few months back, and he had made his way past phase 2 of the course, the foundation course, and now he's already in intermediate just a few months later, so it's making fantastic progress. So just to remind everyone, or people that haven't seen your first interview, Andrew, could you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name's Andrew. I'm currently, as you can see from the fake background at least, I'm on the Gold Coast in Queensland in Australia. So that is home for me, where you can see there. I've been on the course now for about, since I think about October last year. So in that time, sort of progressed through now, starting out into the intermediate phase. And primarily for me, it's been, a great driver, and it's something that's sort of really helped. And, given my work, it's, going to help me in the future as well.
Tell me how you, just tell me about your just general impressions of going, because were you 0 level or very low level when you first started with us?
Oh, it's very low level. Obviously, having been there quite a bit to China itself, and friends and the like, I was able to pronounce a few things. Probably pronounce them badly, but I was able to say a few things and get by, and ask for some food, basic food or drinks, etc. And some of the main greetings. But apart from that, maybe I could read like war or something, but extremely low level.
Yeah. So tell me about just your general overall thoughts about where you started. What, October? So 9 months ago. Mathematics isn't my strong point either. Introducing people in mathematics.
So about 6 months.
6 months. And yeah, like what are your thoughts about where you are now compared to where you started, and how much progress you've made in this amount of time?
Really sort of surprised, to be honest. I was thinking about it today, knowing that we're going to have this discussion, and I just recall going back. I had actually started with a voice coach back in probably March, I think, of last year. And she sort of came along with the standard textbooks. One was for reading, one was for speaking. I think it probably took me about 4 weeks of that before I said to her, let's just get rid of the reading. That's just not going to happen. Because it was that old school sort of style of just like, remember that character, remember what it means, And it was like force feeding learning.
Right.
So I gave up on the reading. I thought this is just something that's never going to happen. But now to where I am, it's just amazing. You're like, and even still to this day, to pick up my phone, to flick through some of the social media or some of the apps, etc. And you can't read everything, but to be able to read a lot more of it, or quite a bit of it in some instances, you just like, I never thought I'd get to that stage. I never did. Not after the experience with the initial teaching. Yeah.
So yeah, that's really interesting. So how do you think your goals have changed? Like, what were your goals when you first started out, and what are they now?
When I first started out, probably the main goal was, to be able to function a lot better in China on a day-to-day basis. More so from a business or interpersonal side of things. It was really just to function. And that's why I sort of said in the end, look, I just can't get this reading thing. Let's just get rid of it. My goals now, like HSK 5 or 6, because I can see what I can do now. And that's really, I understand, it's not something that's 100% necessary to achieve. Like, you don't have to get the piece of paper. It's kind of like, nah, I want it. Because it's for me. It's today, I was able to do it. Yeah. And that's how much the goals. Yeah.
Just as we're aware, you're aware too of the weaknesses with the HSK and all that stuff, but it's still the number one benchmark that's sort of recognized by people, and it's just nice to have. And it does mean something. It doesn't mean that just because the word order they chose or the characters maybe aren't based on the best corpus or whatever, aren't the most realistic real life. The real life application isn't there, isn't ideal. It's still difficult. It's still a challenge. you know, and it definitely proves that you can read and write Chinese for sure.
Yep.
I'd say, that was a goal of mine as well, and that kept me. It really keeps you going in a way. Because goals are interesting, especially when you get to your level, when you get to intermediate and beyond.
Yep.
You know, apart from the HSK 6, because they can be rather abstract at that point, because they call, I don't know if you've heard of the term the wasteland of the intermediate. Have you heard that before?
Yep.
It just seems to go on forever, and you never know, am I advanced yet? But I don't think it's, personally, I don't think it's great to think in that way. I think you think more about what you want to be able to do in the language. So you said before that you wanted to be able to get around better in China, which is a great goal, but that was earlier. In terms of a more advanced goal, or let's say a more lofty goal, to where you are now to where you want to be, not counting the HSK, what would you like to be able to do? Like, imagine like Andrew in a year's time, or 2 or 3. What do you see yourself? What level do you want to get to there?
Primarily because I was watching or listening to some of the podcasts, and I thought I think it was yourself that said it, and I thought it was a great quote, and I sort of thought about it, more conceptually, in that what really does fluency mean in any language? There's words in English I don't know, because I've never had to use them in the past. So that's always probably going to be the case in Chinese. So for me, again, through one of the podcasts that might have been, I deal in business, consulting and that kind of thing. So that's sort of the stream, into this intermediate and more advanced area that I'll be concentrating sort of my reading and my absorbing of new words and the like. So that, my proficiency down that path, that field of what I already know, improves dramatically and, becomes part of it. Because there's, you still might absorb, the way I sort of look at it now, and might be incorrect, but I'm not going to be a mechanic in China, or I'm not going to be a doctor. So I don't need to learn like now or soon or in the near future words that are very pertinent to a given profession. I deal with business. So my absorption, through some of the apps and the like, is going to be more business orientated, and that's where I can discover new words and things like that from that aspect.
It's really well said. I completely agree with that. Otherwise, because if you don't sort of adjust your goals like you've done in that way to be more realistic, then you're going to be in hell, because you're going to just be like, I'm never good enough, I'm never good enough, I'm never good enough. Like, constantly, even though you're comparing yourself to not even native speakers, like the best of the best native speakers like that exist. So it's like the best and brightest of China. So no, you're not going to get them. Neither are 99.9% of Chinese people. So
exactly, there's going to be, even for them, there's going to be medical terms, for example. That's probably a good example whereby they're not going to know them. They'll know, like us, body parts, eye, nose, ear, etc., and internal parts. But as far as very technical terms for, surgeries and things like that, they probably wouldn't know what they are unless they were told them or taught them. So I'm not going to go chasing down that avenue.
And I'll tell you what, from doing a podcast, which I've never done before this, I realized how not fluent in English I am. It's like the amount of times I have to be like, sorry, video editor, what's that word again? Dig. Okay, dig. All right, so I'll start again. It's like it's bad. So that's fantastic. That's great to. I think that you've got that completely right, in my opinion. So where you are now, talk a bit about where you are now in the course and what it's like. Because I imagine you're in intermediate now. You've probably what 700 characters.
Just on 6. 600.
So you've mastered, or you're on your way to mastering. You're definitely proficient in, I would say, 80% of the language by coverage at this point. And because of the way our course is structured, you should be on your way to reading full-length stories, articles, of course, sentences. So tell me a bit about that experience specifically.
That's been probably one of the really sort of eye openers in terms of feeling good about being able to do that. You see, what was the one that you get given just recently? I think it was like Sleeping Beauty, the full story. And you look at that and you go, I can read most of that. And that's just bizarre to even think at the start. I think what it's done now is just sort of woken up this other part of me where I'm always being inquisitive about new words, not necessarily like bringing new words in that aren't part of the course, because I kind of keep thinking, well, we'll get there, it'll come, but even when I'm scanning through other text, so one thing I do, I might just casually scan through Weibo, right? And I see the writing there. And if I see like a line of words and I go, I know all those characters, but I've not seen them used in that way or that order. Let's find out why. So then I'll dig into the sentence and try to understand, okay, so if I'm using this here or in this way or, the opposite, what's it all mean and how does it work together? And I think that's where, coming into the end of phase 5 and into the intermediate, you start to sort of, I started to do naturally. You're just sort of like more inquisitive about, I know that characters, those 2 characters, or maybe even the 3 characters, but I'm not seeing them used in that way. Okay, let's find out what that means. I may not record it, like in a card or anything, but it's just to constantly sort of bring it into what I do. But it's just a strange feeling still. You sort of got to wake yourself up a little bit to be able to look at some of those stories in the sentence and go, I can read that, when it's a pictorial language. But I think, it's woken that curiosity into me to want to know a little bit more and find, like I think it's covered in some of the podcasts, breaking down the sentences, So if I see a sentence in like even Weibo, just a basic sentence, I'll go, I've not really seen it like that. So I'll start typing it, even just into a translator. Google Translate is not the best, but sometimes it will give you an idea of what's happening.
Better than nothing.
So it might be just 3 characters. You just type in the first character, the second character, and see how that changes what the first character meant. And then you type in that final 3rd character and you go, that's what those 3 characters are saying. I think as an example, what was the one? It was in one of the stories, 3 Little Pigs. Jia Show. Yeah? Jia Show. I was reading that and I'm going, big ball speak, what the hell? And it wasn't until I did that investigation myself and went, right, it means to yell or something similar. Okay. Now when I see those 3 in that story, it's just yell in my head. It's not separating the characters. Yeah. So that's what the intermediate is sort of, the end of phase 5 and the intermediate has done for me. Yeah.
You touched on a few really good points there. I think there's something that keeps coming up. It's very strange. Like the last couple of interviews we've done with some other podcasts like Ollie Richards and You Can Learn Chinese and just generally with a couple of other, like Kairi Shikari, it's another interview I did, who's in a similar position to you in the intermediate. This concept of it will be all right comes up, and I think that's one of the things that we didn't realize that we'd given people like that but learning from the perspective of someone that's made all the mistakes and had all the stresses and done all the wrong things and then eventually the right things, and we can sort of get in your head, or rather you get in our heads, and we can say, we've been here, don't worry about it, trust us, it will come. And I think naturally as well, when you put the effort into the course like you've done and you've made the results that you've done, that you've created, you get a lot of confidence in yourself, a lot more confidence than you would if you were just sticking with that teacher that you mentioned, having stuff forced into you and not really doing that well and kind of thinking you're rubbish, which is a side effect of that. Whereas I like to think the way we do things and the way I don't want to take credit, you've done it, but the Mandarin Blueprint style, it's like we're teaching you to basically teach yourself and teaching you the skills, and I think that gives you a lot of confidence. And that feeling of like, I don't know this thing right now, but instead of worrying, like because you're trained in school and traditional methods, that if you get it wrong, you're stupid, or if you get it wrong, you have to try again, you failed. It's more like, I don't know this. Let me think about it. It's a positive experience. It's like I say, an inquisitive experience.
that's what it has done as far as language goes. You get to that point where, as you say, you might be able to read 90% of something, a sentence or a small paragraph on a different platform, on a social media or whatever it might be. And you're just inquisitive. Okay, I can get this. I can't fully get it because there's some things missing there. But I don't go hunting characters because that's pretty hard to do if I don't know them. But if I at least get that feeling, mostly what I'm looking for in that sense is, things that I know but I haven't seen used in that way. I'm just sort of like, I wonder why they said it like that,
Yeah, for sure. So I'm really glad that you've got that positive mindset when it comes to that, and you're doing something as well that a lot of people forget how to do. And if you try not to lose this, because a lot of people, it's really easy to lose this feeling of just like patting yourself on the back and just appreciating how far you've come in such a relatively short time. So I can read that because I can't think of any specific examples right now, but we usually, like, people that are really productive on the course, smash their way through it. They're like, oh, I feel like I haven't really, I'm only getting 95% on these flashcards, or I didn't quite understand this brand new story first time round, native speed.
Yeah.
It's just like, dude, what were you doing 6 months ago? You knew pinyin, nothing else,
Yeah.
You're doing so much better than the average learner, way better than me and Phil did. That's for sure.
And one thing I did, to sort of help that was with Anki itself. I really sort of went and had a good look at some other videos. It seems like it's a very popular platform with medical students.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some really good information out there. Downloaded some add-ons that give you some more detailed statistics. But one thing I was sort of interested to hear, sort of one saying I kind of agreed was, if I was sitting at 95% every time I did all my cards, which I think there was 200 something today, I'd be ecstatic. But then I'd also be thinking, well, I'm seeing those cards too often because, the ideal range is about 85 to 90%. Because that really means you're sort of, learning. And I thought, I thought that's pretty good. If you're hitting 100% every time you do Anki and there's 200 cards, well, you kind of nailed those cards. You need to sort of move on from that. That's sort of how I sort of look at it. Yeah.
Maybe you need to hit the easy button a bit more often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the same as me. I do look at those sort of stats, but then I think, my true retention, because I made a pretty bad mistake from way back in, must have been phase 3 with Anki. And I only sort of really picked it up about a month ago. So I'm still correcting that within Anki. And what it was with the images for the words, you've got the lived experience and you've got the image itself. When I first put the picture into that image block, and it would come up with the word and there'd be the image there. And some of these were quite simple words, when you look back on it, but even at the time. And I thought, well, that's kind of cheating. The picture's there, the word's there. How can you not get it? But what I didn't realize is it makes an entirely new card with just the picture there. So you've got to draw that association from only the picture, get the word and the meaning. I didn't realize that.
Oh.
So I hadn't been putting pictures in the image box. I'd only been putting them in the lived experience box.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So for me, dragging up, if I said to myself, how do I say, a certain word in Chinese, or, what is it? I'm like, I don't remember. So I had to go back, and I've been going back and putting images into those words there. Because, making that connection without the word or without the meaning, just the picture, was so fundamental, and that's sort of improved things for me as well.
Yeah, this happens, and that's not huge. I mean, I want to talk about wasting time. I mean, I've wasted probably hundreds of hours, high hundreds, if not low thousands of hours doing the wrong thing. So it's not too bad, relatively speaking.
No. And look, it's probably only affected those words that the connections weren't really good in the first place. I don't need to put a picture in for a mobile phone. Shouji, I don't need to put a picture in for that. That word is just stuck in there.
Yeah.
And there are many others like that. So it's only correcting things like that.
Yeah, a lot of
yeah,
words have the sort of built-in mnemonic anyway. Schultz, hand, machine. Okay, next.
Yeah. So that's sort of where it's at for me. Is that I think now taking it to that next level and getting a little bit more self-inquisitive about exactly what's going on when words and characters and different ones are used. I'm still trying to get my head around things like I'm not that bad at it, but still not great at things like thigh and things like that. And you sort of you get the hang of it, but
You're talking about pronunciation there?
The character Sai, CAI.
Or like only, basically.
Yeah.
So in terms of how it's used grammatically?
Used grammatically in a sentence. So that's the things I'm really digging into, because you can sort of smash along a sentence, particularly one out of the course, and go bang, bang, bang. Yeah, I understand the sentence, but then it's like, what is that character actually doing in this sentence?
Yeah, it's tough. That one's one of the tough ones. Also, dual as well. That confused me for a long time, because it literally has like, depending on how it's used, maybe 15 definitions, and another one is ba. That really throws people off, how to use these sorts. So, because they're so deep, it's not like tour, like car. That's about as shallow as it gets. It has one definition, pretty much.
Yeah.
And okay, next. But some of these words, they take a lot more exposure in lots of different contexts.
Yeah.
I like to compare it to people. So like there are certain people, like I don't know, the how do we put, I'm going to say it's a non-offensive way, the people that are very simple to understand, like the dude bro at the bar who's like, he wants to drink, he wants to talk about the game, and it doesn't take much to get to know that guy, right? But then some people are there's a lot of layers to them, and to get to know them, you have to see them a lot more in different contexts and chat about a lot more different things. So I'd see, just like people, words are not equal in that way either. So tell me a little bit about your experience with the Hanzi Movie Method right now, because you must have mastered it pretty much. You're what, 600 characters in. For anyone that does not understanding, Hanzi Movie Method is mnemonic visualization techniques, basically memory palaces to learn Chinese characters. So tell me about how you're doing with that at the moment, Andrew.
Pretty good. I'd say my retention rate, in terms of first, second time seeing the character after going through it in the course, has improved dramatically, and I think that's come about because improving the visualization of the movie internally. It's kind of I saw you one that came out last night our time, about the roller coaster of learning, in Mandarin, and it sort of is like that, because at first you're typing out the movie, you're doing the visualization with it, and then sort of early on, can't remember exactly where, I sort of thought, okay, I probably don't need to write it. And then I was like, no, I've not really mastered this. So I went back to writing it. And now I've sort of come out of writing it again. But I think what's changed from the first time I tried that is my concept of being able to visualize the scene has improved. And the way in which to do that. I actually find more now that it helps me more to just visualize it, do a really good job of visualizing it, sit there, close my eyes, run through the scene as I'm doing going through the course, than it does to type it. It's almost so the typing now is a distraction, in a way. I don't know if that makes sense, but you're concentrating on typing more so than you are visualizing in your head. So I've sort of switched it up now, where it's more, just sit there, look at the props, the set, the actors, etc., and then just close my eyes and just visualize the whole scene through and through. So it's been a pretty amazing tool. To be honest with you, I wish I knew more about it earlier, because it's obviously not just learning Chinese that's an effective thing. As I said, it seems like a lot of uni students use some similar things to this type of thing. I wish I knew about it earlier for other things.
Yeah, it can be applied to all sorts of different areas, and from pretty much useless party tricks to memorizing decks of cards. Well, I guess that's useful actually if go to casinos or whatever maybe, but speeches, memorize a sonnet for your wife or girlfriend. You use the journey method. It's tried and true. It works. I've used it in Chinese, like Chinese speech without having to look at any cards or anything. I'm not the best at it, but if anyone wants to learn more, I highly recommend the Art of Memory forum, and Dominic O'Brien's my favorite. Not that I've read many books on the subject, but his books have just been really well written, clear, easy.
Yeah.
And he talks about how to memorize all different sorts of things. But you said, seeing typing as a waste of time. I'm glad you see that as a waste of time now, because that wasn't ever on our radar as a thing to do. It's just people started doing it since the very beginning. Since we never did it personally, but I'd say about a third of people just find it really fun and or useful. So we're not gonna try and stop anyone from doing it as long as they enjoy it and it works. I will say, you mentioned the roller coaster of Chinese. I actually named the last podcast that, but I feel bad because I went back and listened to it and I forgot to actually talk about where that quote came from. I realized that because Alex Sumray, one of our other members, he wrote a comment about it. He was actually referring to a story that I said that I read on Chinese forums that I actually put into the pronunciation mastery course. Did you watch that little bit?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did. Yeah, it was a while ago now, but yeah,
it would have been a while ago now. Yeah, but essentially, it was a quote from one of the top contributors there who said, "That's what Chinese is like, specifically Chinese. It's like a roller coaster. You go up for a long time, and it takes a long time to get up that first hump, and it's stressful and it can be scary sometimes. But then once you get over that hump, that first big hump, you fly and you have your first breakthrough.
Yeah,
and then there's lots more humps and twirls and whirls after that, like basically indicating difficulties, challenges, but they're never as bad as that first hump with Chinese. Once you get over that first bit. So would you say that you're past that first hump yet, or do you see yourself as still on the way up?
No, I think still on the way up, but pretty darn close. As you said, even the sort of experience I've had is even getting toward, as you're going up that first big hump, there's been some extra little bumps on the way. I guess, when you first start getting into compound words and so a little bit more deep from the very starting out of pronunciation and the first like 3 characters. You get to that point. I got to that point where you're like, I'm just never going to be able to get this, it's all crazy. And then probably more when sentences came into it actually. And you're like, I can't get this. I can't understand, this. And then all of a sudden something just clicks and you're off again and you're rising up again. And then, you get into the story phases of thing. You're like, more, and so you hit that sort of another hump, but then something just clicks. Even when it's things like grammatically or the use of some of those funny characters. I'm not a master at Geo, but getting better. But it's improved enough that it's no longer this massive hump that every time I see that word, I'm like, no, it's that one again, or anything like that. I sort of start looking for the other key indicators, how it's being used. Like you've got E in the sentence somewhere, E and Geo, like, now I got you. It's kind of hard when you're reading because you see one character here and the other one down here in the sentence. And then you're like, now I know what that's saying. Something like, as soon as, or something like that. So there's been those bumps. I'd say I'm still on the way up, but probably, a small bump at the moment because I've noticed with the intermediate, there's no English. There's no English translation of the sentences. So that's up to me. So that's probably a little bit of an extra bump at the moment. But then, I've been through, the other phases. I know that somewhere along the line, something will click and off you go again.
I think the way That makes me think, yeah, maybe you are on the way up still, because I was thinking, no, Andrew's definitely, he's on his first big. But I would say the way we've structured the course, the initial hump is maybe a bit longer because of the way we structured it, but it's full of little enjoyable dips along the way up the first hump. So it's kind of like, pronunciation, it's really tough. Actually, it's not so hard. Yay. And then it's like, oh, characters. How do I learn? Oh, I've got to learn characters at the memory palace. Oh, actually, no, this is amazing. Yay. Yeah. And then like, oh, I'm learning words. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's not too bad. And then, oh no, I'm reading sentences. I'm going from characters to reading sentences. That's really tough. And then, oh no, wait, I'm actually understanding them. I'm starting to get the hang of Joe. And there's like little bump, and then So yeah, and then it's full, and then we sort of throw long form content at you as soon as you start to get comfortable with sentences. So we want to keep you challenged, but also give you more breakthroughs and more of those little bumps along the way.
So, I think for me personally, the reading, like if I sit down with one of the stories or the paragraphs, I feel pretty comfortable with that now. So if you said sort of separate it, I'm sort of really getting close to that top of that hill there. Speaking and the like, I've got to get up to speed. I know that. And I think more of a breakthrough through me is probably just, looking at things like Anki, and that's because I did make that initial error of not putting the images in the right place or in both places. So I've noticed how quickly and how much more easily I can recall compound words when I'm doing the Anki sentences, because I can make an association way better now. I'm not just trying to pluck a word out. So, but that's probably how I describe it. Yeah, for myself.
Do you feel looked after in the course, like where you are? Do you feel like, in terms of support from us and other members? Like, what are your thoughts about that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think, there's never been, not even don't think, there's never been a time where I haven't made an inquiry, and you either yourself or Phil haven't gotten back to me at all. And it was even just recently, I know it sounds silly at this stage, but when I was listening to the audio, just as an example, for Bing, every time I heard Annie and, sorry, I've forgotten the gentleman's name, Jerry, in the recordings, Jerry, they would always use that pronunciation of that word, Bing, right? Particularly in the sentences, I think more so than anything else. So I'm thinking, is there something I'm missing? Because you've got the other pronunciation, Biong, Biong, and is there something I'm missing? So I wrote, fired off an inquiry, and Phil got back to me really quickly, just to sort of set straight, the differences there. Yeah. So yeah, the support has been great. The community, I think, on the times that I have put something out there, someone's gotten back, always pretty quickly. You don't really have to wait long to get an answer from someone. That's probably the best way to put it.
Good. Do you have any other just general feedback or comments about the rest of the foundation course, or just your general experience before we leave it for today?
No, probably the only thing I'd sort of say, that I might do a little bit differently. I know if it sort of helps some people, if it gets out to them. Once you sort of get into the sentences and you've got the audio there to shadow, sort of get into that a lot sooner and a lot harder than what you might think. It is, for me, still very challenging. It's not so much that I can't read the characters, it's obviously the mimicking the pronunciation, as well as the speed, even at 80%. But I'm sort of playing a bit of catch up now, but that's on me, because probably like a lot of humans, you go, that's really hard, that's really difficult, I don't I'll put that aside for now, and I'll keep learning some characters and reading more, because that's where I need to sort of pick it up now, is that mimicking and that the use of that. Other than that, the course, for me personally, has been, it's basically done something I never thought I'd be able to do. After that first experience, learning with a native Chinese speaker from the textbooks. They're still over there actually. That's why I threw it. So yeah, I threw it. It's like, no, I cannot do that. That's not within me nowadays. Maybe when I was 19 or in high school, I may be able to have done it, but no. And then to have gone from that level in, it will take 6 months to 600 characters, and I think that works out. I read somewhere roughly 1,000 words, close to.
Yes.
Still can't believe it.
But not just knowing them, like regurgitating them, you can actually consume them and probably at least partially produce them quite well, I would say, by this point. Even though maybe you haven't practiced it as much as as you will later on with the speaking and stuff, but that's fantastic.
Well, one thing I've personally tried to do, so introduced into my daily life. So my phone is set on Chinese. That gets a bit funky at some points. But if I've got to do a reminder to call someone, I'll try to do that in Chinese. If I'm just making a note on the notes application in my phone, I'll try to do that. If it's just a basic thing like a shopping list, even for example, write it out in Chinese. And that's just so that even those very basic things just become automatic. They're not something I have to think about. Still have to think about many things at the moment, of course, but if I just want to say, buy coffee, I can just buy coffee in Chinese. So I don't have to think about it. Yeah. So that's helping a lot.
That's really good to hear. Oh well, if you didn't have anything else to add, Andrew, unless you wanted to add anything else before we finish up for today, I think we'll call it a day.
Oh, that's all good. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
No, it's been great. I would definitely love to do this again once you've made your way through the intermediate course and see how which is going to be 1,500 characters, 4,000 words. So see you next week, or next month maybe.
I'm actually thinking just come back a little bit. So just introduce a few new characters per day kind of thing. And then swing some more attention over to the mimicking and the speaking and the shadowing, just to bring that up to speed, because I don't really want to get to the end of intermediate and then be sort of, my intermediates here, let's just say my intermediate reading and comprehension is at HSK4, but my speaking is like HSK2. There's no point in that because, we communicate mostly by verbally. So,
I'd say
it might take a little bit longer to get through intermediate.
Well, that's fine. It's not going to be time misspent. It's going to be, you're going to be building a broader skill set and a deeper skill set, however you want to describe it. So, and teaching is, practicing speaking with a tutor rather is vital. And it's good to start doing regular lessons earlier rather than later. Even if it's just once or twice a week, 45 minutes, makes a world of difference when you compound it over a year. So that's I think you're making.
I talked to one of my friends.
Moves.
Yeah, I talked to my friend in Suzhou, and she is brutal when it comes to pronunciation. So that works well. It doesn't hold back at all.
Good, yeah, that's good. As long as she knows how to correct it for you and stuff, she goes no, and then as a go at you.
I think it was when I first learned Ebike. Yeah. So I still had my Chinese teacher here in Australia, and she was kind of claiming that that's not what they call an e-bike in China. And I went, really? So I asked my friend in China. She went, yeah, that's what they call it. But she went, no, you mispressed it because you said eat at the end. You didn't say, I'm still practicing the pronunciation of chur because I was doing it incorrectly. But yeah, I was saying it as eat, chur. And she's like, no, you said eat at the end of it. You didn't say.
That's that might be
sorry. A bit harsh. But it helped because I went back and I listened and I went, yeah, I am saying it incorrectly.
Yeah. It's harsh but fair.
Anyway.
All right then, Andrew. Been an absolute pleasure. I hope to do it again sometime.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Speak to you soon.
Okay, bye.